Saw this article at Fox News, had to share it with you, because we're going to talk about slavery. Slavery. Slavery is currently on the ballot in 4 states. And this is a story by Kyle Morris. Now, I did a video about this way back, talking about how back in 2018, the state of Colorado got rid of all of this quote-unquote slave language on the books. And when I told people that Colorado was the last state in 2018 to become a free state, they thought it was crazy. They thought it was nuts. It's just like what happened with Mississippi in 2013. When the 13th Amendment was passed, all of these states were supposed to send in their paperwork to the National Archives. Well, there was an oversight. Mississippi never did it. So in 2013, they sent in all the paperwork to the National Archives, making them officially a free state. So I asked this before, got to ask this again. If you were a former slave or a slave living in Mississippi in 2013, or the son or daughter of a slave or former slave living in Colorado in 2018, let me know in the comment section below. I'd like to know. So it says here, slavery on the ballot this fall as voters decide whether to amend language to Constitution in 4 states. Now, the reason why this happened is because when the 13th Amendment was passed, even though it abolished slavery and indentured servitude, which, by the way, is how many of the Irish, the poor English, and the Asians came over here, it did allow for slave labor or indentured servitude in the case of criminal punishment. So as you can imagine, this creates a loophole. States take advantage of it. But I would really like to know, if you were a former slave living in Mississippi in 2013, or a slave living in Colorado before 2018, or the son and daughter of a slave, let me know in the comment section below. Now, these initiatives are in statewide ballots in, what, do you think all 4 states are in the South? No. Tennessee, Louisiana, Oregon, and Vermont. Well, wait a minute. 2 states in the South, 1 in the North, 1 out West. So was the Civil War fought solely over slavery? So the article starts out, says this, residents in 4 states will have the opportunity to vote on amendments this November that could remove language from their state constitution that permits slavery as a form of punishment for convicted criminals, though not everyone supports the referendum. Ratified in 1865, the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude in America, but it provided leeway for the practice as punishment for individuals convicted of a crime. Several state constitutions still have language reflecting that loophole, as did Colorado back in 2018, allowing involuntary servitude for prisoners, but Tennessee, Louisiana, Oregon, and Vermont are looking to change that this fall. The Tennessee state constitution was amended 5 years after the 13th Amendment, and it stated, quote, slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted are forever prohibited by this state. But the dirty little secret is that this issue of slavery could have been solved if the states were able to handle it on their own. You see, we didn't need a 13th Amendment. Because from the beginning, the states were supposed to be sovereign and independent. Our founders did not want some type of centralized power that was equivalent to a monarch. That language could soon be changed, however, as voters, getting back to the article, in the volunteer state this November have been given the chance to vote yes or no on a statewide ballot referendum to amend the language used in the state's constitution. Should it pass, the initiative, which has received bipartisan support and is known throughout the state as Amendment 3, will alter the language to read, quote, that slavery and involuntary servitude are forever prohibited in the state. Nothing in this section shall prohibit an inmate from working when the inmate has been duly convicted of a crime. So it's basically free labor, slave labor by another name. I mean, that's what you're doing, right, when you're using inmates and you're not paying them. Isn't that a form of slavery? But we allow it because it's part of criminal punishment. Speaking of Fox News Digital, in an interview Friday, Democrat State Representative Dwayne Thompson who represents portions of Shelby County, said the amendment, quote, is symbolic in a way and believes it will pass. Now, this reminds me of an article I saw this morning at The Atlantic. The Atlantic's a dry magazine. Who really reads it? Except people on the coast. But they had this article titled, "The Confederate States of the United States," talking about how he was surprised to see Confederate flags and symbols in Pennsylvania, near Gettysburg. And that the love for the Confederate flag can be found in Pennsylvania just as it can be found in, let's say, Florida or Georgia. Well, I wonder why that could be. Oh, I don't know, maybe because states need to be sovereign and independent and retain their sovereignty? Discussing the language currently used in the state's constitution, Thompson said it makes some people, quote, uncomfortable, and concluded that it could be used in the future to put a person in slavery because they've committed a certain crime or something. No, that person is being punished for the crime they committed, and you have these programs of work release so that people can work off that punishment, learn from their mistake, and go back into society to become a productive citizen, a law-abiding citizen. Thompson said the amendment on the ballot this November, quote, clears all that up and prevents any false interpretation in the future. Similarly, State Representative Chris Hurd, a Republican, said in a statement to Fox that he supports the passage of the amendment and insisted that it would send, quote, a clear message that the state does not tolerate slavery for any reason. Quote, I firmly support eliminating the exception for slavery and involuntary servitude that still exists in Tennessee's Constitution, Hurd said. Words matter, and the removal of this language is long overdue. This change would send a clear message that Tennessee does not tolerate slavery in any form. I appreciate the bipartisan work that has been done to get Amendment 3 on the ballot this year, and I encourage all Tennesseans to support it. Slavery was a very complex issue. Indentured servitude, a very complex issue. Delaware did not end slavery and indentured servitude till 1901. You had 400 slaves living in Santa Fe in 1868. If that tells you anything. So it was a very complex issue. And believe it or not, mentioned this before, the South, they were the first ones to stand up and say no against the illegal slave trade. They didn't want it. And a lot of people don't know this, but in the CSA Constitution, a state could determine that they allowed slavery in these states. People could travel, these slave owners could travel freely from state to state. But they had the power. These states, or, pardon me, territories that became part of the Confederacy, and free states could join as well. These states or territories had the power to not allow slaves being imported from another state that was part of the Confederacy or the United States. And they specifically said that they were not going to get slaves from anywhere else except the United States. Strictly prohibited the importation of slaves from anywhere other than the United States. A lot of people don't know that, but it's in the CSA Constitution. But the South was the first to stand up against the illegal slave trade. And you had a real problem, especially with pirates on the open seas, with this illegal slave trade. Now, this is funny. This is in bold here. It says, we already abolished slavery years ago, but each state had to adopt the 13th Amendment. It wasn't this blanket bill that they passed or amendment that they passed. Each state had to adopt it. In contrast to many of his Republican colleagues, GOP State Senator Joey Hensley, who was one of 4 senators in the state who voted against the resolution to remove slavery as a form of punishment from the Tennessee Constitution, told Fox that he believes it was, quote, unnecessary and took up a lot of the legislators' time and resources. Quote, I think this bill will probably pass, Hensley said. I didn't vote for it because I thought it was unnecessary for us to spend the time and the effort to change that because we already have abolished slavery years ago. Concluding that no one supports the notion of slavery, Hensley said he believes there is confusion among voters about the exact meaning of the amendment and insisted that the wording used in the Constitution was related to the confinement of prisoners. So this is at Fox News. Go check this article out. Slavery on the ballot in 4 states, and they're not all in the South. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for letting me work my way through this. Kind of reading this cold, this article here at Fox News. Story by Kyle Morris. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Follow me at Instagram, #JasonComposes, or find me at Twitter, Culture Confederacy at Twitter. This is the Culture Confederacy saying peace out, stay safe, everybody. God bless this great country, and I'll catch you next time.